Now for the business perspective. My colleague Ashleigh Banfield, anchor of Banfield on NewsNation, spoke with Angie Hicks, the co-founder and chief customer officer of ANGI, an online service provider for home projects. Take a listen.
Angie, it's great to meet you. This is weird, but at least I get to see you and talk to you, which is great. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Ashleigh. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to be with you. I'm a big fan because I think about your start in 1995 as my start of my American journey as an immigrant. And 1995, there was no online, and you started, the precursor to Angie's List. First of all, how did you even do it not online? And back then, did you have any idea it was going to be what it is today?
Absolutely had no idea that it was going to be what it is today. That is for sure. I was 22 when we started Angie's List, and you're right. When I try to explain to people that we were in a magazine and a call-in service, there was barely email back then. Our very first email address for the company was an AOL address.
Wow, well, that says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let's put ourselves back in that time.
You were literally knocking on doors. I can't believe the security risk, because today we just don't even think that's something that's realistic. But B, how would people even respond to someone knocking on doors and asking for something most people would consider a privacy issue? Join my club?
Yeah, exactly. They did not respond well, but maybe they did. So, I think about this back, kind of putting it into perspective. We didn't have a marketing plan. We had based Angie's List off of a business that had been around since the 70s in Indianapolis. And it'd been a little newsletter where you got find the best plumber, find the best electrician. And their marketing plan in the 70s was going door to door. So we thought, well, I guess Angie's going to go door to door. And that, I'm an introvert. I'm incredibly shy. So none of that was actually going to work very well. I looked at it as a numbers game. I'm like, I have to knock on so many doors. And if I can get a person or two to join, I feel like I had great success. So during that entire first year, I measured sales by 1 or 2. If I could get 1 or 2 consumers a day to sign up, 2 was a banner day.
Are you still the same, or have you been able to sort of walk in the front door with a little bit more forceful grit?
I think that, experience gives you just more confidence. And, I think when I think of advice to young, women, I think we tend to hold back more than we should. We tend to not give ourselves enough confidence and credit to do things. Experience bought me some of that. So yeah, I can walk into a room and I can have a confidence and be able to say things much more boldly than I used to. But I still practice that, like, hey, I'm going to work right there beside you and we're going to do this together kind of mentality, because I think that's how you create a good culture.
In that same vein, young people often aren't taken as seriously as veterans in business.
Right.
And so do you recommend employing those same gentle backdoor grit tactics with young people? Or do you still see that there is still an issue with women? They still have to come at things differently in order to be acceptable and not shrill.
Yeah, I think there's a balance of just how you approach things and how you, I remember this was told to me early on. It was like, always know your numbers when you go into a meeting. And if you can't do the math in your head, bring the calculator.
That's like Shark Tank. You hear that all the time on Shark Tank.
It's just things like that where you're just like literally like make sure that you're equipped, that you're not like caught off guard in a meeting. Go in ready to have any answer come your way. And I encourage people to think about that. You're the subject matter expert. If I'm asking you questions, it's because you know things I don't know, and I want to understand where it's at. I've also learned over the years, one of the things that is super important to kind of making sure the team is effective and people are owning their areas is giving people the space to talk about what they know. Like I've been at the same business for nearly 30 years. I've seen a lot of things. Like there aren't a lot of things that surprise me, right? But like I will intentionally, you intentionally sometimes have to hold yourself back and be like, you know what, I'm going to let this conversation reach its point and I'm going to step back and let it happen without me interjecting.
Even if the conversation is a time waster, just for placating those in the room, or are you genuinely hearing things that if you weren't a good listener, you wouldn't have heard?
I think it's important for 2 reasons. That your latter point is one of them, is so that you can kind of hear perspectives and you're not kind of caught in your own narrative. But then also it's a learning experience for everyone there. I mean, I always dislike the like, okay, the highest ranking person in the room should be the one that talks the most. Like, no. Like, I mean, I think everybody, like there should be someone accountable for each thing. They should be the expert. They should be the ones that know it. And yes, they should be able to be questioned and et cetera, but they have to own it and they should get the same respect and in a meeting as anyone else sitting there.
Do you give away decision making in deference to recognition to your employees in that way? Even when you know, hey, we've been to that rodeo before and that isn't going to work. I do have the better solution, but I really want you to feel empowered because it makes a better company culture. Do you ever do that?
I have, and I think partially, because of the long tenure, like circumstances change. Like that decision might result in something different than it did 5 years ago. So you need to not be afraid to retry things. It's kind of don't get caught in this is how we've done them, always done things routine. So it's good to revisit things like that. And I always favor people who are willing and able to make a decision and are willing to, kind of call a shot. I tell all of my team members, I was like, I'd rather you make a decision than ask for permission. All I ask is that if something goes wrong, you come and tell me first, because ultimately I'm going to help you kind of figure out how to fix this. And I'd rather do it when it's fresh and there's less that needs fixed, right?
Well, and then own it. Also own it. Don't try to shovel it
It's
off.
like, and it's not a like, oh, I'm ashamed that I made a mistake. People make mistakes every day. I mean, people will ask me, what was your biggest mistake? I was like, I made 3 today. Which one do you want?
What was your biggest mistake if you have to look over the last 20, 30 years?
Oh, I see. I never answer this one well. I mean, I'll come up with various ones. It's like, I think, we started in the Midwest, and we we were uncomfortable opening a market in Chicago, because it was, a big city. It was going to be expensive to market there, et cetera. But lo and behold, guess why people open companies in big cities? Because there's lots of people there. So Chicago went gangbusters well, and we probably waited 3 years longer than we should have to open it.
That's your biggest mistake? Wow.
No, that's not. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think about this. Like, I don't think about these as like, there's always, that's not probably not, that's why I say I don't have a biggest mistake. I have kind of mistakes that are just kind of memorable to me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think about, there are very few people who can go by their first names, right? Like Cher, which is a whole other category. But, Martha and Oprah, these are people like you that have come from their own genesis. And do you ever consider yourself in those ranks? Because they're very big, bold, and very loud. And you, by your own recognition, don't love the spotlight. And yet you're in those ranks, for us who don't know the difference between, a bottom line at a company, that's you. Do you feel that?
I don't see I mean, I guess it's just kind of the process. It's like I kind of was in the limelight because it was right for the business, not because I necessarily wanted to be in the limelight. I'm super excited about what we do and how we help consumers and pros. And I feel like I have had the great honor of being able to interact with our customers. I tell our team this in a way that many people don't get a chance to do. The feedback I get and the kind of the understanding of people is fantastic. And it's probably been one of the biggest enjoyments of the business for me.
Speaking of the business, I don't know if you are ever really into divulging, but it's no secret you went public, and I think was it somewhere around 500 million that Angie's List was acquired for? Is that the right number?
Correct.
That is the right number? I was just ballparking it. I thought it might be higher. I think everybody always wants to know, is that like your lottery ticket? Is that like your payday? And it's just easy street from here on in? Or at this age, and I think you're 50-ish, like somewhere around there.
Just turned 51. Yep.
How about that? So at this age, are you just starting? Or at this age, are you thinking, I just put in a solid 30? I want to take some time for me.
Yeah. I mean, I love the business. I love the industry. And I I'm like, I think about all the milestones. So you could kind of say, it's like, hey, maybe when you started advertising nationally, maybe when you went public, maybe when you hit this milestone. I constantly try to rethink and reinvent kind of what my focus is and what I'm interested in. And I really keep, kind of two things make the decision about how content I am and excited I am about what I'm doing. And it is, do I like the people I'm working with? And am I learning new things and able to kind of experience new things? And if I can say yes to those, I'm in. And I think, kind of Angie has a lot of opportunity ahead of ourselves. I mean, it's really the home services industry is the last industry that really is going to transform into this kind of, I'm going to click and my plumber's going to be here and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to have that headache of the water heater not working today. And, and I think we are well positioned to own that. And, as we were kind of last fall embarking on, hey, we're going to spend a lot of time thinking about customer experience. I turned 50. Seemed like a nice time for me to think about how am I going to kind of refocus my time inside the organization. I was like, I'm going to spend a good portion of my time actually talking to the customers directly.
And that's your title, Chief Customer Officer.
Yeah, it's Chief
right?
Customer Officer, but usually Chief Customer Officers spend a lot of time looking at data and kind of talking about trends and things like that. I'm actually just talking to the cusutors.
Well,
and it's a magical tool. It's a magical tool.
You can design this job any way you want. You're Angie, right?
And it's fun. Like I literally, because they have the opportunity, they can come and talk about whatever they want. And it's the opportunity to do that just helps everything get done even better inside the organization, right? Because the customer knows like, hey, if I need to, I'll just go talk to Angie about it.
So can I just picture you with like headsets on?
Yeah.
I'm calling the company. Can I talk to Angie?
Yeah.
Do you seriously just pick up the phone?
Well, no, they'll schedule time with me. So a lot of times it's talking to pros and they'll just they'll schedule time. And we'll talk about whatever. We'll talk about how they started their business. We'll talk about how Angie's working for them. We'll talk about suggestions they have. And then I'll take that content and take it back to the team and see how we can iterate on it.
So you're still pretty passionate about this. I mean, this is your calling, it sounds like.
Yeah.
You're not looking to say, hey, I could use some time in Portugal and backpack in Nepal. I don't know what you're doing.
I think it's we're back to that grit and kind of like I just enjoy what I do.
So one other question I want to ask, and it's frustrating because men don't get asked this question a lot, but because I personally have felt it and I've struggled with it, it's family. Family is so tough to juggle for women, not so tough to juggle for men. And I don't know how much that has changed over the last 35 years that I've been in business. How about your read on your odyssey, juggling family and being you?
Yeah, I think it comes down to making choice. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life choice. And you have to make those hard choices. I got advice early in my career before I was married, before I had kids. And, my colleague told me, look, no one's going to make your family a priority. Only you can do that. And that didn't really mean that much to me at the time. But then as I, got married, had kids, all of a sudden that made a lot of sense. Because no matter how great your bosses or your colleagues are, they're not going to be there saying, hey, aren't you supposed to be at your daughter's violin concert tonight? But you have to make those choices. And I'm very disciplined. So like my husband and I had an agreement. If I was not traveling, I was at home by 6 o'clock every night for dinner. Dinner could be a lot of things. We did a lot of crock pot meals because I could put them in the crock pot before I left. Could be carry out. But we sat down as a family and had dinner together. Didn't mean I wasn't, logging on potentially later, but those were the important choices. We were on the IPO roadshow and it was my daughter's birthday, the first weekend of it. So I made sure I got home. My colleagues went to a meeting locally, an investor meeting locally, and I hosted my daughter's birthday party. Like you have to make those choices. And I am like the queen of day trips. I go on 6 a.m. flights, but I'm home at night because I want to make sure that I minimize the amount of time away. So it's making those choices to make sure you're there for the moments that are important.
It's really impressive. It makes me, all while you're saying that, I was thinking about the expression that nice guys finish last. And I think you're sort of the embodiment of nice guys, gals finishing first. Angie Hicks, thank you so much. By the way, I didn't even get to ask you the question that everybody, I think, asks all the time. why is it just Angie now? And there's a whole reason. It incorporates, putting a lot of different brands all together in home services and just streamlining it. So I don't
And
want
giving
you
it
to
a
have
fresh look, so it wasn't just a list, right? It's like we can do a lot more for you to help take care of your home.
I still don't understand why you dropped the E off it, though. That's the question I had. Why is it Angie with an I? Seriously, I
Trendier
don't
with
get
an I. So now I get people that say, "Oh, I've been spelling your name wrong."
it. Listen, thank you for this. It's really great to meet you like this. And I'm telling you, I cannot wait for the phone call that I send your way and you pick up on headsets thinking I'm a customer. Thanks, Angie.
Perfect. Thanks, Ashleigh. It was great seeing you.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks again to Angie Hicks, co-founder of ANGI, and to Ashleigh Banfield for their insights.